Welcome to our deep dive into the fascinating world of defense mechanisms. These psychological strategies are the tools our minds use every single day to help us cope with reality, navigate stress, and maintain a stable self-image. We all have them, and today we're going to break down 17 of the most common ones. They don't even realize how these unconscious patterns are impacting their relationships, their jobs, their whole lives. But the good news is, once you become aware of these mechanisms, you can start to understand why you react the way you do, and more importantly, you can start to make healthier choices. So, buckle up, get ready to learn, and let's get started. Let's talk about denial. It's that voice in your head that says, "Nope, not happening." Think about the smoker who refuses to believe that cigarettes are harming their health, even when their doctor shows them the x-rays, or the person who's deep in debt but keeps spending like money grows on trees. Denial can feel comforting in the moment. The problem is, denial catches up with you. It might give you temporary relief, but in the long run, it prevents you from facing your problems head-on and finding real solutions. Next up, we've got repression. This one goes beyond simply denying reality. It's about burying those painful thoughts, memories, or emotions so deep down in the basement of your mind that you don't even know they're there. Imagine a person who experienced a traumatic event in their childhood. Repression is like stuffing all your dirty laundry under the bed. Unresolved trauma can have a powerful impact on your life, leading to a whole host of emotional and psychological issues. Now, suppression is a little different from repression. It's not about completely burying a thought or feeling, it's about consciously choosing to ignore it. Think about a student who's grieving the loss of a loved one but pushes those feelings aside to focus on their exams. Suppression can be a useful tool in the short term. It allows us to compartmentalize and focus on what's immediately important. But if you constantly bottle up your emotions, it can lead to an unhealthy buildup of emotional pressure that explodes later on. Chapter 4, Defense Mechanism number 4, Projection. This is a classic defense mechanism that we see all the time. It's essentially taking your own negative feelings or undesirable traits and projecting them onto someone else. Let's say you're secretly insecure about your own intelligence. Instead of acknowledging that insecurity, you might accuse a coworker of being incompetent or constantly point out their mistakes. Projection allows you to avoid facing your own flaws and insecurities, but here's the catch: it can seriously damage your relationships. Chapter 5, Defense Mechanism number 5, Displacement. Now, displacement is all about redirecting your emotions, but instead of directing them inwards, you're taking it out on someone or something else, usually someone less threatening. Think about the classic example of a man who gets yelled at by his boss. So he goes home and yells at his wife or kids instead. Displacement is a way of venting frustration, but it's like throwing darts at a dartboard blindfolded. Chapter 6, Defense Mechanism. Number 6, Rationalization. Let's talk about rationalization. It's all about justifying unacceptable behavior or thoughts with explanations that sound logical on the surface but are ultimately just a bunch of baloney. Think about the student who fails an exam and blames the teacher for not explaining the material properly, instead of admitting that they didn't study hard enough. Rationalization might make you feel better in the moment, but it prevents you from taking responsibility for your actions and learning from your mistakes. Chapter 7, Defense Mechanism number 7, Reaction Formation. Reaction formation is fascinating. It's basically going to the opposite extreme of how you truly feel. Imagine a person who secretly dislikes their neighbor but goes out of their way to be overly friendly, baking them cookies and showering them with compliments. Reaction formation might seem confusing, but it's all about protecting yourself from uncomfortable emotions. Chapter 8, Defense Mechanism number 8, Regression. Now, regression is all about going back in time. Not literally, of course, but emotionally. Think about an adult who throws a temper tantrum when they don't get their way, or someone who starts sucking their thumb when they're feeling anxious. These behaviors might have been acceptable in childhood, but they're not exactly appropriate for grown-ups. Regression might provide temporary relief from stress, but it keeps you stuck in the past. Chapter 9. Defense mechanism number 9. Sublimation. Now let's talk about sublimation. This is one of the healthier defense mechanisms on our list. It's about channeling those unacceptable impulses into something positive and socially acceptable. Think about a person with aggressive tendencies who becomes a professional boxer or a martial artist. Sublimation allows you to express your emotions in a healthy way without causing harm to yourself or others. Compensation is all about overachieving in one area to make up for what you perceive as a weakness or flaw in another. Think about the classic example of a short person who becomes an incredibly successful comedian. They might be using humor to compensate for their lack of height and gain social approval. Compensation can be a powerful motivator, but it can also lead to overcompensation, where you become so focused on one area of your life that you neglect others. Now, intellectualization is all about keeping it in your head. It's about avoiding uncomfortable emotions by focusing on facts, logic, and analysis. Think about a person who's just been diagnosed with a serious illness. Instead of processing their fear and sadness, they might spend all their time researching the disease, treatment options, and statistics. Intellectualization can be a way of gaining a sense of control in a chaotic situation. Isolation of affect is like building an emotional wall. It's about separating yourself from your feelings, detaching from the emotional impact of a situation. Think about a doctor who has to deliver bad news to a patient. They might remain calm and composed, explaining the diagnosis in a factual and detached manner to avoid becoming emotionally overwhelmed. Isolation of affect can be helpful in certain situations, especially for people in professions that require emotional resilience. Let's talk about undoing. This defense mechanism is all about trying to reverse or cancel out a thought, feeling, or action that you regret. Imagine that you say something hurtful to a friend in the heat of the moment. Later you feel guilty and try to undo the damage by being overly nice to them, showering them with gifts or going out of your way to do them favors. Undoing can be a way of seeking forgiveness from others or from yourself. Identification is about taking on the characteristics or behaviors of someone else, often someone you admire or see as powerful. Think about a child who imitates their favorite teacher, dressing up in similar clothes or using similar mannerisms. Identification can be a healthy part of developing your identity, especially in childhood and adolescence, but it can become problematic if you lose sight of your own unique qualities and values in the process. Chapter 15, Defense Mechanism number 15, Fantasy. Now, fantasy is all about escaping from reality. It's about retreating into your own imagination to avoid dealing with stress, boredom, or unpleasant emotions. Think about the teenager who daydreams about being a famous musician instead of facing their homework, or the adult who escapes into a fantasy world through books or movies to avoid dealing with problems in their relationship. Fantasy can provide temporary relief from stress and allow you to explore different aspects of yourself. Chapter 16. Defense mechanism number 16, Altruism. Altruism is about focusing on helping others as a way of coping with your own problems. Think about a person who's going through a difficult divorce and channels their energy into volunteering at a homeless shelter, or someone who's grieving the loss of a loved one and finds solace in helping others who are also grieving. Altruism can be a healthy and positive defense mechanism. Chapter 17. Defense mechanism number 17, Humor. Last but not least, let's talk about humor. This is a defense mechanism we can all appreciate. It's about using jokes, laughter, and a light-hearted approach to deal with difficult emotions. Think about the person who makes self-deprecating jokes about their clumsiness, or someone who uses humor to deflect criticism or awkward situations. Humor can be a powerful coping mechanism. It can help you diffuse tension, connect with others, and maintain a positive outlook on life. Well, folks, there you have it. 17 defense mechanisms explained. They're not inherently good or bad, but understanding how they work can be a game changer. Thanks for watching. Understanding these defense mechanisms can help us better navigate our emotional lives, build stronger relationships, and make more conscious choices. And remember, you've got the power to master your mind.